Oh my God, you have ruined my dress. Are you out of your mind, you worthless old woman? That was the first thing that came out of Temi's mouth the moment the trash can touched her. It wasn't much, just a small dirt from the trash can, but it only landed in front of her expensive blue designer gown. She acted as if she was being poured a bucket of urine. Mama Rose, the old worker, she didn't see her coming. She had just packed the waste bin and was about to take it outside. But the waste bin, mistakenly not as much, touched her while she was absent-minded making TikTok videos to her fans online without watching where she was going. So when she made her way to the door leading to the entrance waiting room of the company, a few drops flew out. Unfortunately, they landed on Temi, who had just walked in by accident. She froze, then shouted again, "Oh my God, are you blind? Do you know how much this dress costs?" Before Mama Rose could even say anything, her hand unexpectedly made its way to Mama Rose's face as she slapped her. The slap came without warning. Her frail body fell by the side. The trash can poured on the floor, the dirt scattered on the floor, and her hip hit the hard tile painfully. The entire workers went silent. A few people gasped. One of the janitors stood up, but stopped. Everyone knew who Temi was. The spoiled, arrogant daughter of Mr. Ronald. The daughter who has no regards for anyone who is below her standard, as she treats everyone like trash. Her father, Mr. Ronald, who is the CEO of one of the most feared billion-dollar company in the country, called the Rave Group of Company. Mama Rose groaned in pain. She didn't cry. Not yet. She tried to get up, but her hands were weak as she fell again on the floor. Still, she didn't shout. She just looked up at her, breathing hard. "Ah, my daughter, you slapped me." But Temi wasn't even sorry. "Slapped you? I should have beaten the hell out of you. Silly woman. You poured a dirty waste bin on my dress that cost me over $5,000, imported all the way from China, and you're still talking. What is wrong with you?" Her friends behind her were already laughing rudely. Temi pointed at Mama Rose. "People like you can never afford this dress in your lifetime. Nothing, even your paycheck for an entire 10 years, can buy it. And you have the guts to ruin mine. Of course, you people are the reason why this country is like this. Poor and weak. You don't know how to die quietly and leave the road for serious people. Look at you old, like my grandmother, yet still lazing around at your age like a pest." Mama Rose finally sat up in a lot of pain and touched her waist gently. Her voice was calm but firm. I said, "I'm sorry, my daughter. It was a mistake. I didn't see you coming, and you actually bumped into me." "Shut your mouth." Temi snapped again. "You didn't see me. You didn't see my glowing dress. You didn't perceive my perfume. You didn't hear the sound of greatness approaching. Are you deaf, blind, and foolish at the same time?" The workers couldn't say anything, as they closed their mouths so that they wouldn't lose their jobs. Temi kept ranting and insulting the old woman. "Just look at how you are looking like a wasted investment. Do you even have a family, or have you eaten all of them? To God knows how you were employed here in this company, because you can never afford to eat or work in this type of place. No wonder you're bitter." Mama Rose swallowed her pain and shook her head slowly. "My daughter, don't be like this because you don't know what tomorrow might become. Remind me, what work do you actually do in this company?" "Yeah, waste disposal. And of course one day I will come to your doorstep to come and beg you for food. Keep dreaming, silly woman. You think people like me fall." "My father owns the biggest mansion in the estate. He controls and owns this company. You are nothing. In fact, if not that I'm merciful, I'd make one call and get you sacked here and now." She spat on the floor beside the old woman. "You better be careful, because the next time I see you near me, I swear I will show you what madness looks like in a real world up close." Mama Rose's hands were still shaking as she bent down and started picking the scattered dirts on the floor. Her lips moved again, but this time her voice was very low. "You slapped an old woman like me. You don't know what tomorrow might be for you, but one day I assure you that you will kneel before me." Temi stopped laughing for a moment. "What did you say?" Mama Rose stood slowly, though in pain. Her back was bent. Her work cloth is stained with the dirt on the floor. But her eyes, they didn't look afraid. They looked weird. "You said your father owns this company," she whispered. "But I tell you now, you could lose all of this. The wealth, the mansion, and foremost, this company you brag about your father owns. And one day, you could lose it all," Temi snapped loudly. "Here comes the silly woman who talks without fear. It is pointless making words with you. You know the saying that action speaks louder than volume. We will see. Just wait. I can assure you that you won't know what hits you." She adjusted herself, dusted her dress, and turned away, dragging her rudeness along with her. As she walked away, her friends followed, as they walked away together. The workers were shocked at what might become of Mama Rose, but they decided not to intervene for their own sake. Mama Rose stood alone at the door entrance. She looked down at the trash can. The people who pretended not to see her pain passed her by. Then she whispered, "She slapped me and thinks that all her father owns was built by him." "Okay." She turned and began to walk towards the outside, each step echoing in the cold. No one knew, no one guessed. But the poor old woman working as a waste disposal in the company of Mr. Reynold Johnson, bent, doing all these jobs, was actually the real owner of Rave Groups. Not only is she the real owner, she is the founder of the company. And soon, Temi would learn that lesson the hard way. Now, journey with me to the very beginning of it all. Before the slap, the pain, the curses, before she disgraced the poor old woman working in her father's company, there was a beautiful girl named Temi Johnson. Temi was born into luxury, silver spoon in her mouth, all things you can ever think of, and servants who changed her diapers as though they were handling a crowned queen of a kingdom. She was the only child of Mr. Reynold Johnson, a wealthy man and the CEO of Rave Groups of companies, known across the country. People call him the man, not because he was physically strong, but because any time he enters in any conference meetings or speaks on stage about investments, people listen. He had connections too, properties, and held top positions in many companies handled by the Rave Groups of companies. A gleaming tower in the heart of the island, pulsing with power, swarming with CEOs, and occupied by people who moved like money paved their path. Mr. Reynold didn't own the company, but he ran it like he did. He was the appointed chief executive officer, and his signature could make or break lives. The board members are always being intimidated by him. His employees worshipped him. Nobody dared question him. He was married to a woman named Elizabeth. When they met during their school days, Reynold's father was okay. They were neither rich nor poor, but they were comfortable enough to raise Reynold. Reynold was a brilliant boy, who always dreamed wild and big, like him on top of the world. And that was what Elizabeth admired about him, and she believed in him. They got married young, built their family together. But as the wealth grew, something else grew too. Temi, their little princess, but unfortunately, they grew her wrong, as they were always pampering her. She doesn't lack anything. She goes to many places she wants, and does whatever she wants. You see, Temi was their only child, their miracle baby. Mrs. Elizabeth had suffered miscarriages 3 times before Temi was born, so when they finally gave birth to her, they decided she would never suffer for anything. And they meant it. Temi doesn't do anything that would hurt her, never did chores as workers were around to do so. Their mansion was big enough to accommodate over 100 plus people. Even some workers lived there to always answer whenever Temi calls. If she breaks something, they replace it, no questions asked. If she failed a test, they blamed the teacher for not teaching her well enough. If she bullies another child in school, they said the child was the problem, and the school management won't do anything about it. Her mother defended her like a lioness. "My daughter cannot be wrong," she would shout. Temi is just a strong-willed woman. She is a natural-born beauty. So with that mindset, Temi grew up believing she is a goddess. She is above everybody else as they're beneath her. In high school, she had a serious fight with her cheerleader. They suspended her instead. In university, she crashed her car into a gate and blamed the security guard, which was later fired. But her mother, Elizabeth, never showed her the right path to follow until she died after her daughter's 15th birthday. She didn't see Temi grow up to become the monsters she later became. Years later, she graduated from one of the most expensive universities in the country and now worked beside her father in the company, even though she knew nothing about business. Every morning she lazes around the house, avoids work, snaps pictures, invites her friends to chat whenever she is bored. At times, whenever she goes to work, she either insults the workers or orders them around like a dog. She works in a position she doesn't deserve because of her father. She wears nice outfits she didn't buy, holding files she didn't read, and commanding people twice her age. The staff hated her, but nobody said a word. Why? Because her father was Mr. Ronald Johnson, the man on top of the throne, and as long as Temi was her daughter, everyone kept quiet. At the mansion, she insults the drivers walking for her father. She throws hot coffee at the maids. She shouts at older people like they were primary school kids. Even at the office, she would enter the meetings late, cross her legs, and press her phone, either tweeting or making TikTok videos while others spoke. And the worst part, she loved it. She loved the fear in their eyes as they couldn't speak back at her, the silence that followed her footsteps, the way security men jumped to open doors for her. Temi believed the whole company and her father's mansion belonged to her, and to be honest, it was hard to blame her because her father treated her like a queen and always overlooked the things she did. Every time someone complained about her behavior, Mr. Ronald would wave it off. "Don't worry, I will talk to her. Besides, she is still young," he'd say with a smile. "Let her find her way. She will grow into it." But Temi wasn't growing. She was swelling with pride, rudeness, arrogance, and disrespect. Even as a woman she can't even keep a relationship with a guy, as no one wants to be with her. And when she isn't working, she would be living large, clubbing in parties, buying gold pulses and shopping online for the latest stuff, posting videos on TikTok about lifestyles, and also saying, if a man can't afford to pay you monthly, break up with him, he's broke. Even though she had never worked for anything in her life, she called herself a born billionaire. So when one morning a poor, wrinkled old woman working accidentally bumped into her with a trash can on her designer dress by the waiting room of the company, Temi did what she had been trained to do all her life. Reacted with pride, slapped and disgraced a poor old woman. After all, in her mind, she was nothing, just another nobody under her feet. She didn't realize she had just triggered the beginning of her end. Because that old woman she slapped and even threatened her that she would lose her job. She wasn't just a waste disposal. She didn't need titles or attention. She was the true owner. And now, payback was near. All through that morning, the building was unsettled. Some staff whispered behind desks, other janitors clearly mopping the floor, waiting for news to break. But no one had the courage to speak about what they saw in the waiting room, where Temi slapped an old woman and rained insults on her like she was a piece of trash she was picking. But deep down, the workers knew something strange had happened, something that felt spiritual. Because even after the incident, Mama Rose didn't cry. She didn't shout. She didn't report her. She left the waiting room carrying the trash can, like a woman who knew it was time to do something unbelievable. But she stayed calm. She was on her way up to the boardroom on the 13th floor. The elevator climbed slowly, humming in the background, as Mama Rose stood alone, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored walls. Her eyes were steady, but her heart pounded beneath her chest. It had been 12 long years since she last stepped into that room. 12 years of silence, 9 of them spent in quiet mourning for the man she built the company with, her late husband. 3 of them spent disposing of trash in her own empire, wearing the uniform of invisibility. Maybe she had grown tired of her own wealth. Maybe she wanted to know what it felt like to vanish. Or maybe she was just watching someone, something. But today, the silence broke, all because of one girl, loud, careless, and sharp with her words. One slap of arrogance, one flying hand. And now, Mama Rose was done watching. When the elevator dinged at the 13th floor, the 2 security guards standing near the entrance looked up in shock. They recognized her. Of course, some people knew the old woman was a waste disposal, but they had never seen her come up here. She looked at them and smiled. Tell the board, I want to speak with them. Tell them the sleeping lion has woken up. They exchanged glances. Then one of them rushed inside the glass meeting room, where a board meeting was already in progress. Inside the room was full. Every member of the rave group's board was present. Directors, shareholders, executives, and at the head of the table sat the self-proclaimed man himself, Mr. Reynolds. He was wearing a sharp black suit, a fresh haircut. His silver wristwatch gleamed like a badge of ego as he spoke, confidently pitching a new contract worth billions. The room was all nods and silent calculations, until the door creaked open. "Excuse me, sir," the security guard said, voice low and unsure. "Someone is here to see you. Madame Rose." Mr. Reynald furrowed his brow. Rose? Rose who? Before the guard could answer, one of the older board members slowly straightened in his chair, a sudden seriousness on his face. "What's her full name?" "She didn't say, sir," the guard replied, glancing nervously into the room. Mr. Reynald waved him off. "Well, we're in the middle of something important. Tell her to wait until after the meeting." But she had waited long enough. Before the guard could turn, the door swung open, and there she was. She stepped inside, calm and unshaken. The room froze. One by one, heads turned. Eyes widened. Silence swallowed the boardroom. "Oh my God," someone whispered. "That's Madame Rose Raveson." The very name hung in the air like thunder. The true founder, the silent owner, the woman who vanished from the business world 12 years ago after the death of her husband and left the company in the hands of a board she once trusted. Now, she is back, and the look in her eyes said one thing. She didn't come to visit. She came to reclaim it. Mr. Reynald's throat went dry. He stared at her, struggling to find his voice. Is that really you, Madame Rose?" Rose didn't blink. "Of course it's me." The security guard's eyes widened. "Wait, you're the same woman who takes out the trash and sweeps from the 1st to the 5th floor?" The room fell into a stunned silence. One board member gasped. "You mean you've been here all along?" "Working? As staff?" Murmurs erupted around the table. Confusion, disbelief, shame. Every pair of eyes was glued to her, but Rose didn't flinch. When she walked into that room, she walked in not as a low worker, but like a lioness rising after a long slumber. Her black gown was faded, but something in the way she moved had changed. Calm, powerful, undeniable. She walked straight to the head of the table and looked Mr. Reynolds in the eye. "You don't deserve this chair," she said softly. He let out a shaky laugh. "Madam, please, you must be mistaken. Perhaps confused. Can I offer you a drink or something?" She raised a hand, cutting him off. "Don't speak, Reynolds Johnson. Out of everyone in this room, I am most disappointed in you. I gave you power. I trusted you. Hell no, you didn't even know. I have worked in this company for the past 3 years, but that by the way. And now this morning, your daughter, the one you've crowned and praised and raised like a princess, slapped me." The board gasped. Rose's voice didn't shake. "She slapped me in the building I built with my late husband. She called me trash, worthless, because she thought I was just a poor waste disposal old woman. And why wouldn't she, when her father treats people like nothing? When her mother raises her like a goddess who owns the world?" She paused, then reached into her bag and pulled out a brown envelope. She dropped it on the table. "In there," she said, "are the documents that prove I still own 57% of Rave Group, 27% in my name, and 30% that my husband willed to me before he died. This company, it's still mine, legally, financially, fully." A board member snatched the envelope, flipped it open, and scanned the pages. His hands trembled. "She's telling the truth," he whispered. "Mr. Foster Raveson never transferred controlling rights. All decisions were willed to his wife. She only stepped back from daily management, but she still owns everything." the room went silent again. This time, not just in shock, but in awe. Madame Rose Raveson wasn't just back. She had never really left. Mr. Renaud stood. "Ma, please, let's talk about this." "Sit down," she snapped. For the first time in 12 years, the untouchable man obeyed. He sat like a scolded child, stripped of all his power. Madame Rose turned to the boardroom, her voice steady and cold. "From today onward, I am reviving my full rights as the majority owner of this company. First order of business. Mr. Renaud, you are hereby removed as acting chief executive officer, effective immediately." Gasps rippled through the room like a wave of electricity. Mr. Renaud sank back into his chair, pale and stunned. "Madam, please," he whispered, voice trembling. "Don't do this. I have a family. I have a name to protect." She looked at him, unflinching. "You had a name. You turned it into a rag when you brought in an incompetence of a daughter into my company. You allowed your daughter to spit on my trust, to strike me like I was beneath her, an old woman. And now—" She paused, letting the weight of her words land. "Now you will face the consequences." The board wasted no time. A vote was taken. It wasn't unanimous, but it didn't have to be. Renaud was out. Not everyone in that room had liked him anyway. By that afternoon, the company released an official statement. Mr. Renaud has stepped down due to internal restructuring. All communications henceforth will go through Madame Rose Raveson, founder and chair of Rave Group. But the story didn't stop there. It exploded. Social media caught fire. Hashtag sword. Hashtag waste woman billionaire. Hashtag she slapped her destiny. Hashtag Temi the fallen, and more. Twitter buzzed with the viral headline, "Disrespected old woman turns out to be billionaire CEO." Clips of Temi shouting in the waiting room made the rounds. Memes spread like wildfire. On Facebook, bloggers shared dramatic titles, from Confidence Queen to Jobbers Harris, the fall of Temi Johnson. TikTok didn't hold back either. Edits, reactions, and commentary flooded the app under a new title, "The Mob Queen Has Struck." By evening, Renaud's accounts were frozen. Investors pulled out, clients cut ties. His luxury cars were repossessed, and his mansion in the island was placed under investigation for potential corporate espionage. And Temi, she was nowhere to be found. Hiding. Because with one arrogant slap, she hadn't just embarrassed herself, she had burned down everything her father had spent a lifetime building. If anyone had told Temi that one day she would lose everything she thought she owned, that she'd be working as a waiter in some restaurant, sleeping on a thin mat, and struggling just to afford a daily meal, maybe, just maybe, she would have done things differently. But now, with how fast things were unraveling, even that humiliating future didn't seem so far-fetched. Even her so-called friends had vanished the moment things got tough. And now, her father, Mr. Renaud, had lost everything in a single afternoon. Once the news broke, everything moved fast. His name was wiped off the company website. His framed portraits were torn down. The security guards who once stood at attention when he walked by now couldn't even meet his eyes. Worse still, an investigation was opened into the shady contracts he had signed during his 12-year reign. He went from being one of the country's most powerful CEOs to a man dodging journalists and fighting court cases. And at the center of all this ruin stood Temi, the same Temi who once went viral on TikTok boasting, "I can never be poor, my father is my backup plan." But the backup plan had collapsed. 3 days after the scandal, Temi returned to her father's office, or what was left of it. The furniture was gone, the air was cold and hollow. Her father sat in a lonely plastic chair, eyes fixed on nothing. "Dead," she whispered. "I didn't know she owned the company." Mr. Renaud didn't look at her. He just raised his hand. "Don't say anything, Temi." His voice cracked. "I curse the day you were born. What have I done?" He turned to face her now, eyes burning with rage and sorrow. "Do you know how hard I worked to build my name, to become a man of power in this country? And you With one arrogant act, one moment of pride, you burned everything to the ground. You didn't just embarrass me, you destroyed me. Temi's lips quivered. I'm sorry, Dad. No, you're not, he snapped. You're just hungry. That's why you're here. Temi looked down, tears stinging her eyes. Her father took a long, bitter breath. From today, you're on your own. Find your way. You ruined me. Now go and suffer the consequences. Temi stood frozen. She wanted to call someone and reach out to her old friends, but none of them were answering. Her messages went unread. The silence was deafening. She hadn't just destroyed her father's life, she had wrecked her own. And now, she understood, in the most painful way, that life can turn on you in a second. You never know who's who. You never look down on anyone, because one wrong decision can ruin everything. Dear viewers, what do you think about this story? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and share it with friends. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks, and see you in the next video. Bye.